Good evening. My name is Ben Foltran, and this is the Groundview. This week, I had the opportunity to interview Senatorial Candidate Makena Henley and discuss her message, Rise Up, Be the Change. I had a great talk, and I hope you enjoyed just as much as I did on this segment of the Groundview.
Well, good evening, McKenna Henley. I would like to welcome you here to the Ground View, and please just introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm McKenna Henley. I'm from Florida and I'm running for Senate this year at National Convention.
Fantastic. Well, could you please just give a brief reason why you were inspired to run and kind of what inspired you and who influenced you to run?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously Team Pack had a really big part to play in that. Um, so this my first state class was 2022, and afterward it was in I would say July. I really I heard the voice of the Lord telling me that I had this message that I needed to share. And I saw the opportunity through the national convention elections, and I thought that that would be a perfect place to get this message out to a bunch of young people who are ready to hear it, and ready to hear the truth that the Lord has. So that's kind of what inspired me to run. And then Team Pact has really been empowering in getting me to stand up and be a leader. I ran for state Senate at my state class, and that was really an inspiration because as you run, you get to build so many relationships with people, and you get to learn so much more about what it like the importance of having influence, but using that influence for the glory of the Lord. And I saw that. And so at National Convention, I'm really hoping that I can share the Lord's message and be a good influence. And so, yeah, I just love doing all those things. I'm a natural leader. So, yeah, that's kind of what inspired me.
Well, perfect. As you kind of already alluded to, you have a great message this year. Could you just please explain that?
Yeah, my message this year is rise up, be the change. And I was sitting and praying. I was reading Romans 8, in Romans 8:28, God tells us that we are his chosen people and that we're called to stand out and be different. And it just hit me so hard because I think most of us are pretty aware of the rising issues in our current culture. Um, and it can feel really defeating being like a young Christian in this world. But it was in that moment I realized that if I want to see any change, I have to be the change. Like I have to initiate that. Like we have to, as young people, and I think Team Pact has done such a good job empowering young people to do that. But I just wanted this to be a reminder that if we want to change what's around us, we have to be the change. We can't just expect it to change for us. Like we can't expect other people to do it. So rise up, be the change that's what it's all about.
Well, fantastic. Of course, we all carry influence, as you already said in your introduction, but we need to carry that influence for our God to
Yes, absolutely.
spread the gospel.
Yes,
Now, could you
yes.
please just get into the actual application of this message in the real world that we live in?
Yeah, it absolutely. I think sometimes it can be scary because people are like, well, I don't have like a ton of influence to change. I feel like oftentimes young people feel like they don't have like a voice or a say in what's happening around them, like they feel kind of excluded. Um but really, like I want the point of this campaign is to use my like position to inspire others that they can be a change in any area of their life. It doesn't have to be up on stage at national convention. What really matters is not the people who are up there, and while that's great, it really matters those like the little pieces of community, that one friend that you know that needs Jesus. Like, it really matters in when you're going to your sports practice or your theater rehearsal. Like, that's where it matters to be the change, because if you're not exemplifying the Lord and who he calls us to be in those places, you're not going to be effective in the places of mass influence. So the application, I would say, is really like, one, start by laying your foundation, like get in the word, pray to God, like really ask him where he wants you. And I think that's been a big part in my life recently, is just being like, Lord, where do you want me? And I've seen him open doors where I've gotten to share the gospel in ways that I never thought I could. And so it's like first laying that foundation and then really applying it, like getting out there and being the light. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to some stranger on the street and be like, hey, you should believe in Jesus. Like, it doesn't mean that. But like, if you're at school I'm homeschooled, so it's kind of hard for me to say, but if you're at school and you have that one friend and you know they don't love Jesus, like, obviously, like, maybe throw out some little hints that you're a Christian, and then they'll be like, oh, so you're a Christian, and you'll be like, yeah, you want to hear more about it? Or like choosing to listen to worship music, or choosing to not participate in conversations that are not honoring to the Lord. And those things, they really do speak greatly to you and your character, and that can start causing the conversations that lead to spreading the gospel.
Absolutely. Every moment matters in eternity, excuse me. But of
Yes.
course, we need to carry that through every moment and remember that
Yeah.
every moment has influence on those around us, and that we need to be God honoring in everything that we do. Now, to get on with your Teen Pact experience, is there any moment or just a point that you witnessed or were a part of that just sticks out to you in your Teen Pact experience at any event?
Yeah. I think two major ones. They were both at state class. So my first state class, one, I believe it was the fourth night before the PCW. So like some kids had already left. But we had a bonfire worship night, and that was one of the like most life altering moments for my life, because like I just heard the Lord's voice so clearly, and it was so cool because like everyone there, we felt the presence of the Lord, and we felt like what he was calling us to be. And that really, like, I had been having a great week all week. And that moment, I realized like this is something I want to be a part of. And so I come back the next year and I decide to run for Senate. I'm like, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna put my name out there. I am an introvert, and as a kid I was very shy. And so it was funny because I came to Teen Pact the first year and I felt really empowered to like lead, which was not something I thought I could do. And then the coming year, I decided I wanted to run, and it was awesome because I've never been in a position of like influence over a lot of people, but as I was running and building relationships with people, I noticed like this is something I can really use and like share what I like, the things I've been listening to God with fellow believers, and empower them to do the same thing that people had empowered me last year. So that was really cool. Those were two really impactful moments in my Teen Pact experience.
That's amazing to hear. Everybody has a fun thing to say about Teen Pact, all of us alumni, because it is a very special ministry to be a
Yes.
part of. Now,
Yes.
as we conclude here, are there any final remarks that you would like to make before we close out?
Um, yeah, I would just encourage to anybody listening, go check out my message. You can see a little bit more. I have a couple of verses and how elaborate on those. But you have more influence than you think you do. And really, like, I'm working on this too. Like, let's just be messengers, be the salt and the light of the world, as Jesus tells us in Matthew. to really rise up and be the change, because I believe that like out of Teen Pact, like when you go to national convention, if you're coming, you'll get to be with like 1,000+ kids who love the Lord. And I think that's a real inspiration to see, like, if all of us rise up and we be the change in this world, imagine how much we can do and how much glory and honor we can bring to the Lord. So that would be my final remark, my little summary of all of that. Even if you don't vote for me, I would love if you still did that, because that's the goal.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you very much for coming on to the Groundview for this
Thank you
fantastic
for
interview.
having me.
You have a great rest of your evening.
You as well, Ben. Thank you.